Greetings and welcome again to another 0 Hour Squared Classics, current classics that is. And if you're wondering what current classics means, that means what I'm playing for you right now. The interview that you're about to see was recorded this year in June of 2020, the year that everything went to hell in a handbasket. But we're still alive, we're still well, and the artist that what you just saw performing was none other than Zack Freeman, an individual that I've known for a very, very long time. He's resided in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He calls this place home. He's a fantastic individual. He's salt of the earth. To know Zack is to love Zack. But understand, we're going to talk to Zack, the artist, the musician as well. I mean, this guy runs the gamut, kind of a renaissance man. Zack, welcome to the 0 Hour Squared Classics. Look, dude, I've known you and you've worked on my programs. You were a producer. We go back to the old public access days, all that stuff. But you and I have never really kind of sat down and talked and let me pick your brain. And I think, man, it's well over time, man. My bad on that. But welcome to the 0 Hour Squared Classics, man. Good to see you.
Thank you, brother. Definitely. It's a pleasure.
How's it going, man? I mean, given the nature of things, unfortunately, with the pandemic, but you and your family doing all right? Everybody feeling good, healthy?
Yeah, everybody's good. Kids are all grown. April and Ave live together down at the nice house, and I'm up here in I used to be our rental. And Kieran has moved out. He lives with his homies over in the North Valley, and he's doing some incredible stuff with Albuquerque Black Voices. Like he was like literally like happy part-time college student working as a waiter, making some cool hip hop music, and then things popped off, and he went to a protest, and he was so incensed that he and his friends got together and decided to put their own thing together, and they were using the Black Lives Matter hashtag. So the BLM and like the Albuquerque, I think so the Albuquerque Black Leadership Council. I have the name wrong, but they got a hold of me and they were like, "Is this your kid?" To kind of vet him because it was after the violent riot stuff happened downtown. And I was like, yeah, that's my son. So that happened. And then a few days later, him and his friends were on a Zoom call with Deb Halan, like talking about what their group does and how they want to influence things going forward. And then they put together, they were part of the organizing force behind the Juneteenth events. And then like next thing I hear, I talked to him a couple days ago, and he's like, "We just met with the mayor," and I was like, "You did what?" And he's like, "Yeah, like, so the city's now putting money specifically into Black businesses, and like their group, since they're like these like 20-year-olds, they're like, hey, you guys that did that thing over there, come here, we want to talk to you." And so, yeah, things are, yeah,
they're moving at a rapid pace. Look, I remember when you would bring them to the station, and this was back in the old community public access channel 27 days, and I was doing the 0 Hour Squared show, and you and April and the kids were always there helping me in the production of it, and it was fun, man. I always felt very nice and at ease because it was a family setting for me. Though I was a nut, still am, but I was, single. I didn't have responsibilities or cares, but that was a nice collective. And look, it doesn't fall far from the tree as far as Kieran goes. I ran into him a few months ago, and he says, "Hey, you're Mike Trujillo," and I was like, "Yeah." And he says, "I'm Kieran." I said, "Holy shit, man, you've grown."
I know, right?
He's grown into a fine young man. I saw him in the news after the first major protest broke down here a couple of months ago now, I think. And he seemed very cool and collective, and with a mindset of change, not part of the crazy stuff what else was going on. Because when you get those kinds of protests and everything, every kind of element breaks out. But he definitely is civic minded. He's a fine young man, and I remember him always being very physically active and doing jiu-jitsu and all that stuff. But to see him now, I'm very proud of that I got to see him and know him when he was a little kid. And that's a testament to you, because you, above and beyond what you're representing here on the team, on the 0 Hour Squared program right now, is above and beyond just a musician, but you are an activist. You have been somebody involved in the community in one way or another, whether you've been championing the rights of freedom of speech or help open up a charter school. Max, when you
my gosh, yeah. I forget we did that sometimes, man.
Yeah. And not only that, but again, involved heavily in the movement of equal rights and social justice for all and everybody. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but real quickly, for what you just did, the performance we saw you play, describe your weapon of choice, first of all, and describe what it is that Zack Freeman does. And I'll also preface this by saying real quickly, I think that you are highly one of the most underrated musicians I've ever met in the world. And your message needs to be heard, man. It's killer shit.
Okay, thank you, by the way, for that. I got a thing on that. My weapon of choice is the Boss RC505. I've had this for several years now. I used to have this thing called the Electrics Repeater. It was a rack mount, and I'd wear it. And that thing was awesome, and it looked really cool, and it was super fun to use. But then when this technology came out, the flexibility was like, there was no way. I had to go with this. And so my formerly unsexy performance is even more unsexy now. But the stuff that I'm able to do with this is like, it's kind of on the other side of amazing for somebody like me to just be able to like the electrics was very, like, I had to do a little bit of calculation, like a teeny bit of like calculating, like making sure that I hit the button on time. Because if I missed when I was making the loop, then I'd mess up and have to start all over. This thing has like some very strange allowances that like I can miss a little bit and it'll correct me. And all I need is that little correction at the beginning and it's go. So.
Wind is blowing hot, so often it's a rainy day for playing, a great day for fighting. Pull the bootstrap up, cause my spine can feel the light. And pull the bootstrap up, put my nail in the coffin, cause it's grave when the south wind is blowing hot, so often it's a rainy day for playing, a great day for fighting. Pull the bootstrap up, cause my spine can feel the light. And pull the bootstrap up, put the nail in the coffin, cause it's grave when the south wind is blowing hot, so often it's a rainy day for playing, a great day for fighting. Pull the bootstrap up, cause my spine can feel the light. And pull the bootstrap up, put my nail in the coffin, cause it's great rave when the south wind is blowing hot so often. It's a rainy day for playing, a great day for fighting. Pull the bootstrap up.
And I found this old lectern. It's like, you know, like, I don't know. It looks like something from like the 70s or 80s that somebody probably used in like a music class or something, but it's all wood. So I just dragged that around and I'm like, I ain't trying to look cool, but if I was, here I come with my wooden lectern. You know, like, hi, my name is Zack Freeman. I'm the professor of looping, scooping. But yeah, so the underrated thing. So like I had this thing. I don't know if you remember when I did the America's Got Talent thing.
Yeah.
I only told you, Steve, and April.
Right.
That was it. I didn't tell anybody else, you know. And in fact, like my mom kind of forgot that I was on the show. And I reminded her last night. She was like, "You were on America's Got Talent?" And I was like, "Yeah, Mom." Wow.
That's dude. If your mom forgets that you were on a TV show, that's pretty brutal. But you know what? I can relate because all of my sisters. I mean, they don't know the pseudo accomplishments. It's like, oh yeah, it's brother doing stupid crap. You know, guy's always doing something. But yeah, that dude, America's Got Talent. That was amazing. What year was that you came on there?
I lived in 2006, I believe. Yeah.
So right around that time, I had done a commercial for the NFL.
Right. That's right. I remember all that happening, and both of us were just kind of like, this is funny.
It was happening right at the same time. What was that experience like? You were one of two New Mexico artists on the same program that made it on there, oddly enough. But what was it like?
It was actually like really fun, and like it was pretty nerve-wracking for me because the last time I did anything like that was when the acapella group I was in was on the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and a very similar thing happened. I couldn't sleep at all the night before. The Jerry Lewis Telethon thing, all I had to do was jump up and beatbox, right? You'd be like, oh, it's going to be fun, cool. Well, no, bro. Like that night, I remember we were staying at this crazy 5-star hotel, and I just remember looking at the ceiling, and I remember what my covers looked like because I was just like, you know? And then America's Got Talent, you're signing releases like you sign one before you go on the show. You sign another one when you get there. You sign another one at the end of the day after they're done talking to you, and they've explained the rules and all the legal stuff. And then they show you run through the program, and everybody goes and does their sound check and stuff. And that finishes, you sign another waiver. And I was like, how many of these did I sign? Like,
it's like you're closing on a house or something.
Dude, yeah. And I did close on a house, and it was like, nope, one and done, like, and that was it. You know, but so I had went with the song prepared, and then the dude was like, hey, are you like improvising when you do that? And I was like, yeah, I have the lyrics memorized. And he was like, could you do a song maybe that like has America's Got Talent and like Regis's name in it? And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, because, you know, like you go like having some semblance of preparation, and then that's out the window, right? And I was like, oh my God. So I went home, I went back to the hotel, and I was so wigged out that I actually stopped because like the LAX is like right kind of at the edge of Inglewood. And like I took a bus back to the hotel and then stopped and figured out where I was, and I was like, I'm gonna walk the rest of the way so I could think about this. I found a gun range, and I went in there. I was like, I need to buy 100 rounds, and I need a 22. And the dude was like, oh, you're gonna shoot the elephant killer, huh? And I was like, what? He's like, it's a joke, man. You're shooting a 22. I was like, I don't care. Give me a gun. And so I went and popped off 100 rounds, felt better, went back to the hotel and stayed up till like 1 writing the thing that I ended up performing. And yeah, it was pretty nuts. And it was actually like one of my worst performances, bro. Like, not even joking. Like, just the nerves, and then like the making it up again. And I was like, you know, super like, ah. But I mean, I was just glad to have the experience. The people I was on with were amazing. Everybody there was like super cool. Regis, that dude is a gentleman.
Regis or Simon Cowell was there too.
He wasn't. It was back when the Hoff and like Brandy were the judges.
Oh, okay. So it was a different version. Okay, so I got confused. I forgot the America's Got Talent versus the way the setup is for American Idol.
Yeah.
Right. And I saw dude, when you performed on there, that was incredible. I didn't think that you were you were just Zack Freeman, man. You were doing your thing, and it was cool to see that. And I remember being all excited and proud, and I remember you telling me, don't say nothing to nobody. So I didn't say anything, but then, as it came closer and as the airing of the show was going to happen, I let all my family know, and we were all checking it out, and it was really cool. And that's back in the day. I didn't have a DVR, so I didn't record it. I wonder if you could find that on Facebook or on YouTube.
I do. Like, the other, I'm at a loss for her name, but her husband saved the video of it, and then she got a copy to me. And so as soon as I got that from her, I uploaded it, and it's been up there since 2006, 7-ish. So.
It's funny, they were kind of testing your talent. They were like, okay, let's see how versatile this guy is, if he's not just overly rehearsed, but if he can improvise on the fly, because that's part of entertainment. And of course, you were able to do it. And I've seen you play hundreds of times, and no set from you is ever exactly alike. So let's go back. Let's do a little history lesson for people that don't know Zack Freeman the way I do and a lot of others. But so you're originally from Salt Lake City, but you moved here in 2000, correct?
Yeah. I was born in Salt Lake, and then I was raised in Hawaii and Denver, and I moved to New Mexico from Denver in 2000. So me and April just it wasn't really happening, and we had lost our place because it flooded, and so I think we were living at two separate addresses for a long time, looking for a new place. And my dad was like, "Go take over my double wide over there and go to school and stuff." And so we did that, and we've been here since.
And you've done a number of things. Everything like we talked about. You were the programming coordinator at Public Access for several years, and then you kind of encouraged me to get on the board. And we've had a long history with all of that, but from the musical aspect of your career, you started out in a cappella bands, and you had described playing in an a cappella band, or that the style is sort of snooty. You said it's not really jam based or spontaneously collaborative. I wanted to be more free with my music and the way that I made it sound. That's an old quote that you did on the Weekly Alibi one day.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that's a great quote. So kind of tell us from that aspect how you ended up with your own beatbox machine, how you incorporated blues, hip hop, rap, rock and roll, all condensed together in what you do.
Roger. Okay, so basically we were on our first national tour, and we were at the beginning of starting to tour nationally, and we had to go play these college conventions where schools would go to buy their entertainment, right? So I think it's called the National Association of Campus Activities. And so what happens is you show up, you play, and then schools will actually perform and they book you. And so we were six guys that were all singing, and then we were doing this weird beatboxing, and we had a soul guy. And so we were kind of we were a good fit for a lot of campus activities boards, because we're very G-rated. We were multicultural before, that was cool. And then we were doing basically adult contemporary stuff. So it was some stuff that you hear on the radio, and then nice oldies, but they all had beatbox and soul singer guy in them. And so that was working for us. And either way, we're at a convention, and this dude rolls up with a rack of samplers, right? And he's this old white guy, and he starts pulling out all these indigenous instruments that they're all over New Mexico, but it was the first time I'd actually seen any of them. So he busts out some little drum and makes a beat, loops it, and then busts out little flute things and played them. And I was just what is this? It's like Bobby McFerrin, but with instruments.
Yeah.
And I was for the rest of the time that I was in, that was from that point till now, I was always looking for an opportunity to do that kind of music thing. Cause I'd done something, I'd done experimenting with stuff like that at home. So if you had a karaoke machine, you could sing a whole line, right? So, cause it's got the recording on one side and then the tape play on one side. So I would throw in a tape, and then I'd record myself just singing the bass line. And then I'd, put it over here, put the other tape in, record myself beatboxing, then play both and record. And I did that kind of thing by myself. And I was I know there's a way. I just haven't seen the stuff. And so the thing about, not to talk too much smack about acapella, because I have a lot of good memories of it, but after being away from it this long, like I also have some I think this way about it now. Now, I had the pleasure of being in a couple really good acapella groups. The first one I was in was Graffiti Tribe, and that was the one I toured with and like kind of got my chops. But the one that like was a much more stable and educating atmosphere was this group called the 17th Avenue All-Stars. So when I was in Graffiti Tribe, we kind of thought that we were like a lot cooler than we were, you know, because we were young guys. I was in Graffiti Tribe from when I was like 18 to must have been like 23, you know, like young. And you know, just because we were getting these opportunities to travel all over the country and tour and do this kind of music at that level, we all thought that like, oh, we're doing some amazing things. And then what we'd actually done was we stole the repertoire of the 17th Avenue All-Stars, because they were the most successful group in Colorado, and they were kind of like the people that made the acapella scene what it was. There used to be, in fact, there used to be a restaurant in Denver called Acapellas. So initially, we got our start there. We played 4-hour shows every Thursday, and that's where I really, really, really learned to like perform and beatbox, because 4 hours of beatboxing, dude, that's crazy. Like, I didn't have to do sit-ups because the way that you breathe would flex your stomach for so long that like I looked ripped all the time and I didn't work out. But it was literally from playing 4-hour shows or 2-hour shows of straight beatboxing. So that happened. I eventually, after Kieran was born, I think I went on 2 more tours and I was like, I'm done. I didn't like my band anymore. I really couldn't stand the music. I felt like it was super pretentious. And at that point, I was only getting along with one other band member. And so I was like, late. And yeah, dude, it was just like, but here's the thing is that like, we weren't doing a lot of original music. We weren't trying to become innovative in the way that we sang. And then we had a very strange attitude about like how good we were. And so I'm like, if you're not doing original music, you're not doing like really like not difficult, but if you're not trying to create cohesive arrangements that really speak to the spirit of the song with an angle towards either making the crowd have an emotional reaction, then I'm like, well, what are we doing? Like, I don't want to do this. Like, this thing that I'm doing now, this is the most I've sang other people's music since then. And so I ended up getting playing with the 17th Avenue All-Stars for 2 albums. And that was great. Like, they made me stop being like the kind of performer that would get all messed up and then show up at the show and play, you know. And the band leader, this awesome guy named Norm Silver, he was like, you know what, Zach, you're cool, but you don't need to be getting all jacked up before you play. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, do you look at how much we pay you? And I was like, ding, 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 ding. I got you, bro. I got you. I got it. Well, we're good, you know. And so, but then they were also all basically my age. Now they were in their like 30s and 40s. And so it was a different kind of professionalism. Like, I did have to show up on time. I was doing covers, but like I was getting paid well, so I didn't mind, you know. And then they didn't look down on me. They respected my talent as a beatboxer and as a vocal percussionist. And so this one guy named Tony Huerta, he's the if any of you people have heard of this band, this group called Take 6, amazing a cappella jazz group, he's their sound guy. And so he like went through this whole thing where he like reconfigured the kind of mic that I use. He would always like he would do tricks because he also ran sound. He would do stuff to make my bass hits do crazy things just because he was a sound engineer too. And then he taught me like some of like that is like making bass sounds right here with your face. So like you can, and I was like, what is this amazing thing that you do? So I learned all that stuff with them. And then at the same time, I was also playing with the punk ska hip hop group that I was kind of a founding person in, called Kid Plastic. And then I was also sitting in at the time with this other acid jazz group called the United Dope Front. And they went on to, all of us they turned into a record label. We all put out an album or two through that record label, and it was quick. It was like just in a couple of years, there was like 12 albums that came out of that. And they were all different. They were all different stylistically because we all wrote, our own stuff, and then our homies came in and played. Mine wasn't that great, but it was fun to make. But some amazing music came out of that collaboration. Like we ended up doing the music for a Corona commercial, and that was like, that got royalty checks from that. And then they were an amazing band too. So I went from like this a cappella group that wasn't doing original stuff to like learning the material with an older group, then moving into punk ska hip hop and doing original stuff, and then doing the beatbox hip hop thing with United Dope Friends. So that was the musical journey that I had just finished when I moved. Well, actually, I kept on playing with those groups until 2006. So even when I came here, I was still going back to rock with the 17th Avenue All-Stars, a teeny bit with Kid Plastic, and a fair amount with United Dope Friends.
So the philosophy of beatbox then, and you demonstrated a little bit of how, what it is, but give us a condensed skinny of how that, kind of was created, how long it's been around, and how you kind of really discovered that's why and where you wanted to go from this a cappella group.
So, like beatboxing, okay, so vocal percussion has been around since people started singing, right? But it got the beatbox moniker as soon as like the Fat Boys and Dougie Fresh and like these early cats in hip hop were like the MC's doing the thing, and then I can't tell who originated it, because like you can say the first time you heard it, but like I never bothered learning the history because it wasn't important to me because I'm a horrible musician in that regard. But I'll explain that in a second. But yeah, so it was some kids were like, that guy's rapping, no, I gotta imitate the drummer. So those are like elemental hip hop sounds that like pretty much most beatboxers that are serious about it can do those. And that's your bass, your hi-hat or ride cymbal, and then your rim shot, right? And then if you're special, other guys develop. Well, actually, the dude that I remember teaching me this because he did it first. I'll put money on that because I'd never seen nobody else do it. And this guy named Andrew Shake and Kid Beyond, he introduced the snare, like so. Before he did that, nobody had like a snare that sounded like that. And what that actually is it's kind of the combination of the snare and your kick drum hitting at the same time. So for me, I like did my acapella stuff, but it didn't occur to me to stop listening to other people and start going to live drummers until I was probably like halfway into the thing. And so I started like listening to like more live music. I think Led Zeppelin was actually the first like rock group that I was like, oh, you should probably listen to the live drummer because he's doing the things that it's supposed to be doing. And so then I started going to more shows and like actually checking out bands and watching drummers, and that kind of flipped it for me. At the same time that I was paying a lot of attention to this Andrew Shaking guy. But basically, my thought process is that like your beatboxing should be what the rhythm section does. It can be a standalone element, that's cool. But like if you're doing it with a group, you're not there to stick out. You're there to push the song forward by being the drummer. So I've always looked at like what I do when I work in a group setting is I'm the drummer, and that's how I'm gonna participate. I don't need to show off. Like with the All-Stars, I'd get a drum solo and that was all fun and whatnot. But I was there just basically like, because especially when I got to play with a good bass player, like you can send any song like cruising down the road. I've worked with my favorite bass player here in town to work with is Arthur Meters. Because like he's crazy, and then with this thing, I don't even have to work that hard. I'll just like make something and be like, and and he goes. But like that's the thing is that like you got to be you're there as a timekeeper. And then when I teach beatboxing, I tell the people that I'm talking to like your job isn't to make fancy noises. It's to keep time. So you got to be able to crack eggs on your beat, and so that's basically how I look at it.
What was your first show like? Was it nerve-wracking getting up there, all by yourself with your machine, and people are like, "What is this all about?"
It was pretty funny. I was kind of in I don't give whatever. I don't know if you remember Jenny Gamble, but she used to have an open mic down at what is it? It's on the corner of Carlisle and Central. It's like some Asian restaurant now, but it used to be Club Rhythm and Blues, I believe. Is that what it was?
Oh, I can't remember. It's been a while.
So she had an open mic down there. I bought the sampler and had it for I think maybe like 6 months, and I was still working at the Pulse at the time, and so I started taking it in every now and then and like making beats there, not during their hours, just because my bosses didn't mind if I plugged into the system. And so that open mic was the first show I played, and that's where I met Jenny. And then Jenny was actually one of the people that got me out and playing in front of people the most. But that first show, I was just like, okay, here goes. And I remember I'd putting the mic down and people just being like, wait, what? It's like, the beat's still going, but that dude's not beatboxing no more. And I want to say that's where I also met Todd Lovato. I'm not sure. I want to say that was the night I met him too. But either way, that's when I started connecting with people. And it wasn't nerve-wracking because I straight up did not care for like the first year that I performed. I sang out of tune. Like I'd practice, but like I really had this determination that I was like, I'm not singing any song the same way twice, ever. Even now when I realize that like, oh, I'm doing that like the way I've done it before, I might even stop and just be like, nah, I'm not going with that. But that's the thing from like being in cover bands and being in those acapella groups for so long. I was just like, it got maddening to sing the same thing again and again and again. And the only place that made it okay for me was when we got to a song that really rocked, and like our soul singer guy would step out, get the crowd going, and I was like, all right, now I can start playing with the beat and flipping it backwards and forward and stuff like that. So that's why, like, for that first year, whatever. If you listen to stuff from back then, you're like, you're barely making those chords work. And I'm like, I am barely making the chords work. But that was practice for like now. Now things are a lot tighter, but like I still, my concentration isn't necessarily on like singing perfect. It's mostly just like, is the beat good? Does the harmony and stuff match up enough to like make you like move or happy? That's all I need.
It seems like a complicated process, and it's pretty cool because every time I think about one of your shows, I think how it starts developing. You lay down one track, if you will. Is that what you call it? Like each track of whatever it is, whether you're doing the drum layer or whether you're doing other types of I don't know, rhythms or whatever you want to call it, even if it's emulating a guitar or what have you, and then ultimately some layers of vocal layers and such. So it just kind of culminates into one. It's actually cool because that's one place that you never see that happen with a band. It's not like they're going to start playing the sax player first and then the guitar player and then the bass player and the drum. They all start simultaneously. You literally layer down your tracks and you get going. So with that in mind, what are some of the pros and cons of playing by yourself like that versus playing with a band? What are the pros and cons?
The cons are I'm an island, and it's all like, it's only me. So that's like, I think if I was going to say that it's not a disadvantage to me. I think it's mostly just like kind of, if it was going to be a disadvantage to anybody, it'd be the audience or the viewer, because it's not a situation where they see the collaborative effort of multiple musicians, even though they technically are. And here's why. Because I stand on the shoulders of other musicians. Like everything that I do, I've drawn from somebody else, whether that's like the small amount of jazz that I listen to, or the tons of hip hop that I listen to, or like the tons of rock that I listened to during like that phase, or like the phase where like I went through listening to like metal, or like every musician that I've ever played with, or like understanding my sense of funk and my sense of like hip hop. But then also like the style that I sing is primarily built from listening to my parents sing and listening to their cultural music. You know, like I still don't get into a lot of gospel. I listen to like tons of soul, but I try to listen to gospel enough to remember, like, yo, man, what I do comes from that kind of thing. You know, it is from the side of communal singing, you know. And of course, like, you know, Black church and Samoans, nobody sits around going, now you're on the 1 and you're on the 3 and you're on 5. You know, it's like, nah, just like, well, the super pros do, but by and large, you know, that didn't happen at my grandparents' church. And I only went there for a little while when we lived in North Carolina when I was a kid. But that and growing up with my dad and us having to sing every day, but not for nothing like crazy or creative. It was like you had to sing a hymn for prayer in the morning if we had the morning prayer, but definitely every night when we had the family prayer, we had to sing a song. And like, I think I was like 4 when I started picking up on harmony. And by the time all 4 of us were teenagers, like nobody liked singing, I don't think, but we all could. So we would only sing with each other. But like, you know, our parents would be like, you have to sing at church. And we're just like, you know, we didn't do that because you can't roll your eyes. If your mom saw one, your dad's Black, they will smack you the next Wednesday, meet you there, and beat that ass again. So like, it wasn't none of, you know, we're just like, okay, yes, we're definitely singing.
Super economy, now we're on a roll. At the midnight when the president take control. Run around and something makes that last scene. Elephants and asses kill the people. Yo, if it's karma that you believe in, then you're praying on a wheel. Not to mention a bunch of them burning marks, but testing the law still. Now if it's a bullet that you believe in, then you're a man who lives by the sword. Well then the man with the pen really tip you off, because it's fewer guys like you with the word. And now my girl and I've been talking, and neither of us understand. Myself, I'm from Mars, and these from the planet that's a couple away from you too. Now I swear to God that I love her, but sometimes it's hit or miss. You ban the last and I just think it floated in the war. It was my face that got hit. Now come on with the super economy. Now we're on a roll. At the midnight will the president take control. Run around and something means that lies seem real. Elephants and asses kill the people. Then I come on. Super economy. Now we're on a roll. At the midnight will the president take control. Run around and something means that lies seem real. Elephants and asses kill the people. Yo, don't be sad. Here's your respect token. Read between the lines because the truth ain't ever spoken. You're the president is jamming out on NBC while the whole world's burning out on MTV. My generation is fast and beautiful. My generation is tripping on speed. My generation is locked in the matrix and is doing silly things on TV. Now don't be sad, y'all. Here's your respect token. Read between the lines because the truth ain't ever spoken. You're the president is jamming out on MTV while the whole world's burning out on NBC. My generation is fast and beautiful. My generation is tripping on speed. My generation is locked in the matrix and is doing silly things on TV. Now come on with the super economy. Now we're on a roll. At the midnight hold the president take control. Run around that subject makes that lie seem real. Elephants and asses kill the people. Then I come on. Super economy. Now we're on a roll. At the midnight hold the president take control. Run around that subject makes that lie seem real. Elephants and asses kill the people. Yo, we are poor, we are broken, we are rich and we're bigger than hippos. We are different frequencies banding together, but when we got to fight, yeah, we pulling out our misses. We are jaded African Americans, we are jailed the clinking poor. We are the Muslim signs for white guys who get shoved around at the corner store. Let me hear my people say, super economy, now we're on a roll. At the midnight hold the president take control. Run around and something makes that lie seem real. Elephants and asses kill the people. Then I come on. Super economy, now we're on a roll. At the midnight hold the president take control. Run around that subject makes that lie seem real. Elephants and asses kill the people. Then I come on.
After we learned how to harmonize, me and my brother started a group in high school, and that's when it became fun again. So that's what I mean when I say that, like, they don't know who they're listening to, but they're not just hearing me. They're hearing like my ancestry. They're hearing all my influences. they're hearing people that I'd like to sing like, but can't. So I'm like, I'll kind of inch towards what you do, but I can't do it. So this is what here's what they get. So but the pros are mostly that, like, I think that as a musician and an artist, you should have a private space where you get to make music exactly as how you think it sounds. And like, that's the cool thing about like people who do the entire production for the album, or they orchestrate the album project, or they pull together the band to make the sound that they want. Or they involve themselves in collaborations that help produce the kind of sound that they want and they want to portray for themselves. And so, the pros are just that, like, it's a lot shorter of a step for me to do that than I think it might be for some other musicians.
You mentioned influences, and I think, I really appreciate your candid response into how much deeper it goes, even to playing music you didn't necessarily want to or like to, but you learn from all of that. You know, that's part of growing up as a kid, man. You do things you don't like, and then you realize how much it helps you going on forward into your livelihood later on, when you kind of appreciate it more and accept it. But from a pop culture standpoint, some of the influences I definitely hear. I hear a lot of Prince, but the one that I hear the most is Refreshing, because you have very enlightened and informational lyrics that are enlightening, sometimes not the best in terms of maybe not the best, but not always all happy. They're used.
Oh, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
But you do it in a way like Stevie Wonder used to do. Stevie Wonder never preached at you. He never, alienated a listener by being, you got to do this, you got to do that, or letting that weigh on the listener. You have a way of delivering like he did, where he fluidly let it out. Maybe even Marvin Gaye in that way. They fluidly let the message out. You caught it, you took it for what it was worth, and it was very meaningful.
Yeah. I tell people when I perform, I'm like, I'm being deceptively happy. Like, the beat's happy and all that, but like, guess what? I ain't say no happy nothing for nada. Like,
right.
And I usually start making this joke towards the end that I'm like, all right, y'all. I'm gonna do a happy song now, and then I'll sing it and I'll be like, and I'm lying. That was not a happy song, But I don't believe that I don't owe the world none of that, Like, I don't have to write a happy song. I have no intention of ever writing a happy song, because like, in my soul, I feel that there are some things that are so inherently wrong that like, I'm gonna say it. Cause like, as a person of color and as a person who's also in the military, there are some things that are, I'm not in the vein to be able to say everything that I want to say, And so putting it into music is where I cheat. I make one-sided arguments with music, where like, if you can't just like comment and be like, well, nah, or like, you can't get in my face there. I'm like, I just sang you a song, dog, like, to make my point. I don't need to like go to a city council meeting or like Facebook post what my actual feelings are. I'll just find this piece of music that I've either written or that I can take out of context for you, and that's how I'll say what I need to say. And I think that like, it's fine for everybody to use it for how they use it. For me, that's how I say the things that I really am pissed off about, without saying I'm really pissed off about it and like alienating people. And that, I think, is and number one, it's the strength of context. Number two, it's like it's a sign of what's actually happening right now. I'm like, what would make, I've asked myself that, like, what would make me write a love song or a happy song? And I'm like, well, all the good stuff's happened to me. So like, apparently not nothing, like, I'm just going to write this stuff, right. And that's, I think that's fine. Like, I love groups like Killer Mike and LP with Run the Jewels, to where everything is just like, and like Public Enemy, and even like Arrested Development and Kendrick Lamar, like all those people who like, they're like, more than half of what I say is going to be me like checking you, but like, I'm like, there's tons of great love songs in the world. I just don't write any of them.
Right. But I think that you do have an innate ability to run the gamut. Like, couple of my favorite songs are Dog Story is extremely near and dear to my heart because it's a relationship or one that you are wanting to have with just a dog, a kick-back, cool dog. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song, and anybody who loves animals will appreciate it. It's very cute. But then American Wino has a very deep message. That might be, those two might be the two favorite songs I have out of your catalog that I know that you have, because I know you have 2 albums, but kind of speak to again, being able to have that ability to go from 0 to 60 and back again really quick with a message, either one emotionally close to you or one socially, politically, out there that you might have, that you might want to say, like you said, where you're feeling angry, but you might not want to be able to send that message out anywhere else.
Yeah. So I wish I had a dog. I haven't had a pet since my dog Clifford died when I was just out of high school. And so, but that dog was chill as hell, and I was like, and one night I just heard some like, I was like, that's pretty funny. And like that was back when I'd freestyle my stuff first and then make a judgment if the freestyle sucked or not. And then it turned into a song. And that one, it just kind of was like, and I was like, man, that's good. Maybe one day I'll get a dog. But that one, like Clifford he was a really cool dog. He was the perfect guard dog. He used to run away a lot when he was like super young, but as he matured, he was the kind of guard dog that like stayed in the yard. He barked at you until you left. But the minute that you kids would like flick cigarettes at him, he'd just pop over the fence and chase him down the alley. And I was like, that's what you get. And he was a really funny dog. So I was like, I'll write a song about remembering that. There are other songs that like American Wino, I just kind of like had it with this thing of like, I felt that like at that time I felt like I was dealing with some people in my life and some kids in these school situations that I was in, because I was working for the state at the time. And I was like, you guys don't understand the dumb that you're doing. And it was like right at the height of like all of us parents buying our kids cell phones, and then all of a sudden all of our kids getting cyberbullied, and then like the beginning of like the naked selfie movement by teenagers and children creating pornography, and like that distribution through the internet. And it was this perfect storm of me having to go talk to these kids at schools, and like having I had a really good experience of talking to thousands of kids who were like, you said the things that like people have tried to say to us, but like I was cheating. I was taking my machine with me and doing like a song, talk. And so I would talk to kids on the level of like, I'm like a brown kid that grew up like you, because it's New Mexico and I'm talking to predominantly brown kids. But the thing that was getting my goat was at the time, the reaction, the non-reaction of parents to the irresponsibility of giving this technology to kids who weren't ready for it. And then kind of like the storm that it created without anybody looking, being like, what's the real problem here? And I was like, emotional intelligence, bro. When you give somebody that much power, you need to tell them how to use it correctly.
Right.
And that wasn't the thing that was happening. And so that's part of where American Wino came out of, is that like, here are these kids getting in trouble for this stuff, but you're also not requiring them to step up and be responsible. Now that's totally changed. It's completely different now, but that was 2011, to 2000, like 2009, 2011 back then. And I was like really incensed that like so many people were giving kids a pass on like, and young kids and young adults a pass on things that it was like, no, we're supposed to be teaching them this. We can't just be like, here's a phone, Google the rest of it. Because like literally, even at this moment, we're walking around with almost the entirety of human knowledge at our fingertips in these phones, and we still don't use them 100% correctly. We're better at it, much better at it now. But that's kind of where American Wino came out of.
Well, it's like giving a kid a car without any driving lessons at all. That's a perfect way to sum that up. On that note, in terms of your awareness, your activism, your work in social, change for the betterment of humanity, because that's where you come from. And that I know firsthand, and I always pay tribute to you on that, because you have a kind heart. I think you're, for lack of a better term, you're salt of the earth. And I mean that wholeheartedly. And you also channeled out your art above and beyond the music stuff. You are a fine artist that takes to paints and cardboard, and that's how else you express yourself. And lately with the pandemic and also the issues that we've seen with the Black Lives Matter movement and the social injustices and our search for a betterment of the world, you make some amazing paintings. On the pandemic, you went on kind of what I called from the Voivod song a gas mask revival.
Yeah.
All crazy paintings of people wearing different masks. No, you don't see the person, you just see the different types of masks. And I think that speaks such volumes to the society in which we're in now. And on the flip side, as far as the George Floyd and that situation, you've painted him and several others that have unfortunately either perished or fallen victim to the social injustices. Kind of tell us about that artwork and that side of you, Zack, if you will.
First off, we were all at home. We couldn't go nowhere. And I was like, well, when I first started hearing about people in the mask thing, I was like, how is that a problem? It's literally just your neighbor is who you're protecting. The people in the target range are who you're protecting. Little children is who you're protecting. And I was like, if the military is making us wear masks whenever we go into their installation, and if they're canceling events because this pandemic's happening, but every picture that I see of a guard member who's out there helping, they're masked up, I'm like, somebody seems to know a lot about what's happening. And if it wasn't that important, then why are the soldiers doing it? And I'm like, well, they're doing it because there's more happening than we know. And if they can't get sick and they're not risking it, and of all things your government is asking you to like, hey, step up and participate in this regard, what's so hard about that? And so instead of arguing with people online about it, like honestly, I just started like sanitizing my timeline. And I was like, if you're going to say something like that, I no longer subscribe to the thing of Facebook being an open forum, because I'm like, it's not. It's a place that you can do targeted conversations with people only like you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now you can have that egalitarian view of like, oh, social media is a great place for us to have complicated discussions about all kinds of things, and it has its season for that. There have been some great moments in social media where like people have like really crossed lines and been like, and had like really, really, really like socially changing conversations about things. But right now I ain't feeling that. And it's polarizing is like the catchword. But what I basically saw was that like the trolling culture of people like saying, oh, I just say things to make people mad and sit there and laugh while they get all pissed off online. And I'm like, I am literally not that. I'm not that. That I'm sorry, Satan, not today. Like, I don't want to wake up and see something that ticks me off, knowing full well that somebody I know threw that up there specifically to watch somebody else get mad. I'm like, that's a whole kind of like I'm trying to think of a word that doesn't only have 4 letters in it to describe it. That is a whole other level of disrespecting technology, yourself, and the possible context that you could have in a moment where people are malleable. That totally disrespects all of those things. And if you're saying that you want to have your opinion to change things or make people more educated about a situation, insulting other people's intelligence and insulting them in the process and saying something inflammatory, what are you doing? You're hurting things, And I'm not saying that like I get butthurt about it and it ruins my day, but I know good and well that now people's opinions online are very important to everybody else, and that's part of the reason that like people get so hurt in these exchanges over the internet. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna make art and like post it because like my friends think it's cool. And like every now and then somebody from like the past or some weird part of something would be like, well, I don't think that the math and math and I don't math. And I was like, and blocked. I'm like, ain't got time, dude. Ain't got time. I don't, if you think it's okay to show up on my timeline and say something inflammatory because you can tell that everybody else there has basically a different opinion from you. And it's like, you just stepped into a room and be like, all you libtards and your stupid mask, guess what? That's not important. And I watch people do that all the time. It's like jump into somebody else's life and say some poisonous stuff because it makes you feel better. And I'm like, nah, don't need to hear it. And I do understand the thing of having like discourse, but I'm like, I'm done with doing it there. I'd much rather take that discourse right to your face. We can sit down and have coffee. We can social distance on a bench at the park and talk about it that way so we can act like humans, because once we get behind our keyboards right now, people don't know how to act. And so that's why I'm just like one-sided arguments, man. I'll make a painting of that. I'll make a painting of like another mass thing. I'll do a picture of George Floyd because I can't go to the protests. I'll make Black Lives Matter posters and give them to my friends. I gave one to Marcos Nunez, like he out of the blue. He was like, dude, I need one. And I was like, oh man, I got you, and I'll do that. And like I made buttons with George Floyd's face on it. And I got lucky that I live in a town where Major Keller came out and said Black Lives Matter, and where they have an initiative now supporting Black-owned businesses. And where we have an office of equity and inclusion where they say Black Lives Matter because they understand what that is. And Black people are not a monolith, right? Just like any other group, we're here, there, and everywhere. We have our own thoughts around things. Like all my homies in the military that are Black, we don't all think exactly alike. Like me and my dad, he's like super Orthodox Mormon. Me and him don't think alike. But there are some things that have happened over the course of the last, we're just going to say from 1953 when my dad was born up until now, because that is a good time. That's a good stretch right there to talk about in regards to my Blackness and how that relates to my family. My dad was born in 1953 in the middle of Klan country. He didn't talk about that until this year. And that's when he told us the story. That's when he told the world the story of why crosses didn't get burned in his yard. And it was because a young man got in a car accident one night, rolled his car. He came to my grandparents' house. My grandma didn't turn him away, fixed him up, sent him on his way, and was kind to him. And the Klan never bothered my dad's family. Now, that's not a story of redemption or community involvement. It just meant that this one dude was like, all right, maybe we shouldn't mess with those Black people because they cool. They still mess with everybody else. They burn crosses in all the other neighbors' yards. So then my dad does this interview where he talks about his reaction to what's happening right now. And in it, he's like, I went to Hawaii and I met these Mormons, and they were really nice people. And they were really nice white people. And this is where it gets titchy. People are like, wait, what does that mean? And I'm like, where he was, the way that white people treated him was so different that when he got to Hawaii, he was like, these white people are nice. And I'm like, that ought to tell you something. Like if like a kind-hearted person like my dad is saying that where I grew up, people were like that, like, I'm not your guy if you're going to say all lives matter, because that's my dad. I watched him get pulled over in front of my house with me in the car and be treated like he was a dumb teenager. And he's a hardworking man who works in the Mormon temple, okay? Mormon temple. And he's getting treated like that because somebody's like, well, I don't know who you are and I'm having a bad day. Let me just chew you out because you're a Black guy in an alley. All right? So that's how I saw him get treated by the establishment, And I love my cop friends. I like every police officer that I know in the military, I'll go to bat for that fool because like all of them have been excellent, especially to me, And when I worked for the state, same thing. But I've had an experience of being this color in this country, and it's not the same. Like that's one thing I can say about being married to April for 19 years. April Adams has never been anything other than like perfect in that regard. She's understood that it's different for people, and now she has like, now we have 2 mixed babies, and they're like coming into like, this is really not right. Like, how can this keep on happening? And April's like right there with them, has always been. And like our families have all thought the same way. But now when I got to hear my dad, who's like in his 60s, be like, bro, it's always, I'm like, that's why the All Lives Matter stuff, I'm like, I can't jump up and down and yell Black Lives Matter, but I will make that sign and I will take it to my son so him and my daughter can do it at the protests. I will make those buttons. I will make this art because that's real. And there's nothing that anybody can say to make me change my mind about that because I lived it. Like, I don't need to go into my experiences with all that stuff, but like, suffice it to say that I take my dad seriously because I know something about that because I've lived it too. I had to move here to not have that continue to happen to me. In Albuquerque, to Albuquerque's credit, like, I've been pulled over legitimately 9 times in 20 years. Legitimately. And of those times, I was let go. They like, here's a warning, have a nice day, sir. And like, you know, like, I remember, so I've been treated completely differently by the establishment in New Mexico. And I say it's because it's a different kind of group of people. It's a different mentality. There's things here that are not, there's things in Denver that are endemic at that place, whatever, you know, but like here in Albuquerque, it's different. You know, it's a minority majority state. People are used to seeing people of color and not thinking that they're weird. They're used to seeing people of color in government, in successful business positions, like working for the tribe. Like, it was like everybody who was doing great was brown, like me. So, you know, that's not the case in Denver. But, or wasn't when I lived there. But that's why I'm like, I didn't just make this stuff up and start singing about this stuff yesterday. It's been happening. It's been happening to people like me. And I just refuse to, this is like one of the few places where I can like say all the things, you know, because like I do have to watch my mouth. I'm a 2nd lieutenant in the National Guard. I can't just be like, blah. But here in this forum, I think I've been fairly honest with you and fairly straightforward about the way I feel without like saying too many 4-letter words.
Right.
But you know, that's what it is, man. That's why the art came. That's why the music is coming, because that's literally what it is.
And that's what I was hoping to get out of you, man. Exactly. And you delivered. And I really appreciate your candor. I knew that you do it with class. You hold yourself with a high amount of dignity. And by the way, congratulations to your dad, because I was born in Salt Lake and visited there frequently. And I know that he was one of the first black pastors in the LDS church. That's a very significant thing, man, when you live out there. Let me tell you, I know all too well how Salt Lake City is. It's a tough place, just like anywhere else if you're a person of color living out there. So congratulations to him on that note. Again, Zack, thank you for your candor. Thank you for your music, man. Thank you for your love, your backing. You've mentored me and still inspired me, man. And that's why I was like, damn, why the hell haven't I talked to Zack on this, man? And I hope this reaches people. I hope they listen to it, get a grasp of your music and understand it and appreciate where you're coming from. Real quickly, a couple quick questions. Really, the first one is, I know you have 2 albums, but do you have any other recordings, and what other platforms do you want to tell people out there? We'll also have the graphics for it so that people know. And lastly, I'll ask you, what is your message to the youth right now going through what they are with everything, with as heavy as 2020 has, well, it's built up to this year, but including a global pandemic. What would you have to say to them in terms of words of wisdom that you could possibly impart to them?
You know, okay, so here's a funky answer to that. Oh, first, all I'm doing right now is I'm doing this cover project thing, if you want to call it that, where like I'm pretty much like, I try like every couple days to like think of a song that I really like, and then I'll rearrange it to turn it into like, to basically mess with the context and like say something different than what that song was trying to say. But I think more often than not, what's happening is like the truth of the song just comes out in a different medium, and more on that in a second. But I don't really, it's weird. I don't really have something to say to the youth right now. I have something to say to people our age, and it's, they get it and we don't. Like they get it. If you have Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old climate activist, getting bullied online by grown-ups saying like, what kind of expert is she? She don't know. I'm like, it takes a 16-year-old to tell you that this planet is jacked up and y'all need to stop. And your answer to that is, what does she know?
Right.
You think that they don't know that this earth, that the ground is getting trashed? You think that they don't know about the DAPL situation, about us trying to put pipelines through native land when they don't want it? They know all of it because it's all over the internet, and they run it better than we do. They use it. more effectively than we do. The thing that happened with the Trump campaign, where a bunch of TikTok users and little kids went to reserve seats so that people, however you feel about it, just so us adults get it, they were the ones that were like, we'll just reserve all the seats and then people won't be able to go. And I'm like, that was them. That was not us. I went to at Juneteenth, we were down there at the park too. That was youth driven. Everybody up on stage was like under 30. All the organizers, like the performers. It was it was refreshing to see, like, to be at like a Juneteenth thing and like see it be predominantly like young college kids again that were like, no, dude, we ain't with none of this. And like, you don't even have to be politically minded to be like, what's actually happening? And I'm like, it's time for us to pay attention to what they're saying, because they're starting to get a sense that they've only got the one planet, they've only got the one country, they've only got the one life, and they want it, and they want to be able to enjoy it, and they want to have grandkids who can enjoy it too. And I don't think that was a predominant thought for a lot of us. We're like, get money, ruin the world, get more money, ruin the world, bomb those fools. And it's like, they don't think like that. I think they're over it. So yeah, mostly the like cats our age, like, you got kids, pay attention to what they're thinking, because they're not stupid. Millennials are not stupid and lazy. They're not even a little. And then especially like teenagers, kids like now, especially like 5th grade to seniors in high school, like sophomore and juniors in college, they're smart. And
it's like that David Bowie song, Changes, man. The line he says, and these children that you spit on, they're quite aware of what they're going through. They're immune to your consultations. It's very true. And I'm glad that we're ending it on that note, man, because that is probably, I was thinking and talking to Andrea about that the other day. It's like, my generation, we got a lot to blame for what's going on. We watched too much TV and thought we were living that life, and that's not the way it is. Reality is reality. We're not all walking around like Clint Eastwood or even Boba Fett in Star Wars. We have to really come to grips that that's fantasy. The reality is here, and we've really goofed up a lot. And again, the kids that we don't give credit to, where they're absolutely taking the bull by the horns. I'm very proud to know that this generation is smarter than we give them credit for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So on that note, what albums? You have the 2 albums.
Yes. There's actually one that's just called Freeman, and then there's Two Men Presents Zack Freeman. I know I'm like great at album names, dude. I'm the master. What are we calling it? Freeman. So those I have a self-released one, and then the one that I did with Two Man Productions back in 2009, and then I'm not selling music right now, but there's a reason for that, because like I help a lot of my friends with like weird small projects that they have. So like I have a Gmail folder that just houses a bunch of like my favorite usable tunes, and like I use them for when I do video. Like I'll just go up to there, drag something down, throw it underneath the video, because I do that a fair amount for the kind of work I do. But right now, I'm just like, if you're my homie and you want some of my music, I'm like, here's the link, enjoy. But there's a specific reason for that. Like, I want to keep the karmic wheel spinning, right? And right now, charging for my music isn't the way to do it. Because I still get paid to do music, but not in the way that I thought I was going to get paid. It's like, in my work life, I do a fair amount of video editing, And so being able to create video and make it engaging with music that I make, I'm getting paid to make music. And I'm like, sounds good. So yeah, if anybody wants something, just, find me online, be like, what is the Gmail folder? And I'll be like, here is the link.
Zach, I don't know what else to say, but thank you very much, man. It's been an awesome pleasure and a privilege to have you on, and we'll have to do it again some more and get some more of your tunes, and we'll have to get together and have a beer, man. And it's great to see you healthy and happy and doing well for the community. That's one thing that you've always been very minded about, is helping out, not just you're selfless. You don't think about yourself. You think about the community at large, and that's very, very important. I think that more people need to really get to know each other better that way and respect it. So you do great work, man. I do appreciate it. going to just say it again, man. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it very much, and look forward to our next conversation. You take care.
I know, man. You too.
All right, man. This has been the 0 Hour Squared Classics with former producer of the 0 Hour Squared show on public access television. Good longtime friend and a great human being and a person in the community. Great musician and artist as well. Zack Freeman right here in the 0 Hour Squared Classics. We're out.
Are you still doing
Oh
my God, he's still doing that. Oh my God. I forgot about that part, dude. Oh my Lord.